Well, welcome to Backstage with Geoffrey Morrissey. I'm your host, Geoffrey Morrissey. I am joined today by Neko Case. Neko, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. So you just released a beautiful new album called Hell On. So it's out there for about 1 month, touring with Ray LaMontagne right now. And when I went through this album and I listened to it, it was just it seemed so personal and so cathartic that the release wasn't necessarily the point, but it was more you just had to get the thoughts on paper and sort of process it that way. Was the release as important as writing it for you, or is it more just I sort of need to get my thoughts out?
Well, I've been working on it for a while. It's very, everything is very purposeful. I don't know, like I'm still kind of in it. Like it was finished such a short time ago that I still feel like it's still happening, so I don't really have enough perspective from it yet. I think we finished mastering very late in March, which was kind of end of the line for time.
Yeah.
And so, things just got pushed back a lot. So I don't know. I haven't even really been able to listen to it as a separate thing yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just kind of waking up to it now. But as far as the recording process and the songwriting process, that was all very, very much on purpose.
And was that did you find yourself searching for inspiration with this, or did it more just sort of come to you?
I think it was definitely coming to me, and things come to me from working on things. So I don't mean that in the way like some people say, "Oh, I'm just an antenna for the ideas." No, it's work, and work not in the negative. It's work in the explorative. So it was a really great process. It felt really good.
Of course. And then production is one of those things for me that I find it tough enough just to mix this down to mono. I'm always in awe of people that can, have that talent. So what was the trickiest part for you when you think about production, that trickiest thing to get down?
Well, it's about remembering what's there and edit it, because there are always many, many, many tracks, especially now that we live in the digital world of endless tracks rather than just 16 or 24. So it's about editing and remembering the little parts that happen that you don't want to miss or that you don't want to end up on the cutting room floor. It's all about editing and remembering a vast amount of things at the same time. That's the really hard part.
Trying to just keep it all straight and make sure that you're not forgetting stuff. Well, and that's one of the things that I noticed with this album, especially in comparison to other ones, is that the tracks do seem a little bit longer, just if you sort of look at the timestamp on them. Was that something that it just sort of happened that way, something that you were purposefully sort of thinking about?
That just kind of happened. It was kind of just a nice surprise, really.
Yeah.
And then, Curse of the I-5 Corridor is like 7 minutes long, which I found a little shocking, but it was like, no, I don't feel that I can take anything out of it. It says what it needs to say in 7 minutes, and so that's how long it's going to be.
And it doesn't feel like a 7-minute song, too. Like when you listen to it, it just doesn't drag. It's a great song, and it leads me directly into my next question. Especially on this album, just the storytelling and the way that you're able to tell a story with each one of these songs just sort of blew me away. So for you, was storytelling always something that you liked to do through music? Was that just immediate, or did you ever experiment with telling stories other ways?
Well, I think I came to that because, I've always loved music, and I love movie trailers, and I love mythology and, folklore. And so I like stories that don't necessarily have an ending and don't necessarily have a moral. And I like stories that can get people excited without giving everything away. I like people to be able to wear the song like a vest, like it's their vest for a second, and kind of make it about what they want. But there's guidelines there.
Yeah.
There's images. There's, because that feeling where if you see a trailer for a movie and then you go see the movie and the movie's not very good and everything great was in the trailer, it's like,
yeah,
well, let's just make a bunch of trailers. It's because it's really exciting. Like there's nothing, they're not less valuable in their way if they create that excitement.
Yeah, no, of course.
And that sounds like a cheap cop-out for not doing a lot more work, but it's actually just as hard. So, it's making a story say what it needs to say in a short amount of time is not easy. But it's a really satisfying challenge.
And it's a challenge that you certainly meet again on this album, Hell On. And then with a song like the I-5 Corridor or Hell On, you're just talking about, people can be able to wear the songs like vests, which I really like. Yet everything that's in that song is so deeply personal. And you do it so well because I can relate to those songs without necessarily having the same experiences as you. But how do you sort of do that so that way you don't give too much away about your life so it can fit like a vest, yet you still retain the connection that you want to it?
It's about editing. It's about just trusting and editing, I guess. I mean, editing is very specific and trusting is not. It's just a good balance, striking a good balance between the two.
Striking a good balance between the two.
Or trying to.
Or
like,
trying
there's
to.
no such thing as like a measure or a test you can run on a song that says, okay, your balance is good. It's not like checking your oil or something. So it's not an exact science. It's more intuitive. So the trusting is definitely helpful.
I know that one of the things that is important for you is sort of being useful and sort of having a purpose. For you, when you think about this album, what was the song on this that was most useful for you personally? That you either learned something in the making of it or through processing the lyrics? What song was useful for you?
I think probably Hell On was the most useful for me. Curse of the I-5 Corridor is definitely up there too, though. Like, they both are pretty personal in their way. I don't know if it was a learning process so much as it was a trusting process. Like, it's okay to just, I mean, I don't even know how to describe that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think that's the reason you have to write the song in the first place, in a way.
Of course, of course. And then the other thing that I want to ask is with this record specifically, we just spent 10 minutes talking about one song. There's so much there. Is there anything on this that people aren't picking up on that you were like, wow, I wish people would talk to me more about X, Y, or Z, or a specific thing that you want to point out when people are listening?
No, I mean, I think there's just one thing that kind of makes me go, no, when people write about the record is people think that because I'm a woman, I'm making music for women. And that's not the case. Like, I make music for everyone, and it's not a gendered thing. And it's not that I'm not making music for women, not even close. Like, I do with great love, but it's for humans, And I see people write about other women that way too, and it makes me a little depressed in that regard. So I want to just point out, like, these songs are for everyone and not just women. But, I'm hoping that, I don't know, I hope people kind of get the gender thing out of their writing eventually. And, there are times when it's specific, and yeah, of course, but, women aren't always talking to women specifically all the time. Like, we talk to other people too.
Yeah, which feels like it should go without saying yet. It's something especially that I notice in reviews too, like as opposed to interviews, because people would never say this stuff to someone, yet when they can write about it and think that it's not a two-way dialogue or conversation. But yeah, it's
you wouldn't believe what people say to my face sometimes, actually.
Oh no.
So
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
They're just not even realizing they're doing it. And sometimes I correct them and sometimes I don't, but
yeah, no, it must be I can only imagine how frustrating that is. But I want to thank you for taking the time today. I know that you have a
thank you for having me on your show.
Of course. And then my question that I like to end everything with, who are you listening to right now? Who's been spinning on the bus?
I've been having a serious re-romance with Speaker Box by Outkast.
Oh, okay.
And just really getting into Big Boy's writing and his choices of harmonies, which are really strange. And I've really been loving that record, and it's been hitting me emotionally. Him writing about, failings in people's families. It's really beautiful, and it's a really tender thing, and it's really been hitting me hard again. But that's what great records do. You can pick them up a few years later and they do different things or comfort you in a different way.
Of course, of course. And if you're not listening to Hell On by Neko Case, pick it up right now, stream it, stop what you're doing. It's definitely worth your time. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.